Subtle skills, big results.
Welcome to the Ninja Selling Podcast.
Hey everyone, it's your good friend Eric Thompson. This is the Ninja Selling Podcast. Thank you so much for listening and engaging. We so appreciate it. Today, I am joined by the one and only Mark Johnson. Say hello, Mark.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Fantastic. We're doing great. Mark, it's so good to have you here. Many of you know Mark. Mark is one of our fantastic ninja coaches. And the theme today, we thought it would be fun to talk about pie time. And yes, we're having fun with the theme because this is coming out very near to Thanksgiving. So what better time than to talk about pie time, right, Mark? So let's have fun with that.
Yes, great time for pie time.
Great time for pie time. All right. So I'm glad that we're starting off kind of on a light note with a smile on our face, because sometimes, Mark, we notice that pie time becomes confusing. Not that it needs to be, right? It is, and you find that same thing too, that this whole concept of pie time can potentially overwhelm someone, but it doesn't need to.
I think sometimes we try to overcomplicate it too much when we see it. So then we get kind of scared of it, and then we don't even talk about it or look at it anymore. We put that away.
Right. So let's make this fun. Let's make this easy. We're going to give you some easy wins. We're going to make this a really valuable tool for you to help you grow your business. And not only is this relevant because it's near Thanksgiving and it's pie time, but also it's relevant because we are in the thick right now of business planning season. And this is for sure a time to really understand this concept and put it to use for you to make the most of it so that you can have a terrific 2025 and really by making great use of your time. Okay, Mark, we're going to start with getting everyone on the same page with the definition. Okay, so when we talk about pie time, we're using the acronym PIE. And so, Mark, can you walk us through what the P, the I, the E stand for?
Yeah, so P time it's just straightforward productive time. Anytime, it's basically the old adage, right? It's anytime you use a client in a contract. It's an activity like doing a pre-listing interview, a listing interview, going out and showing buyers property. Those activities will lead to hopefully production, a contract, and the contract will lead to P as pay time.
Okay, sounds good. So P time takes three ingredients. It's you, a client, and a contract,
Exactly.
which could be a listing agreement or a purchase contract. Either one of those, that's P time.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't actually have to lead to the final, but hopefully the goal is to help somebody get to where they want to go. And that means we close the transaction for them.
Okay, fantastic. I time. What is I time?
I time, think of it as indirect P time, indirect productive time. So anything that will lead to that, like showing clients a CMA for their real estate review, going over, do your personal notes every week. I'm doing your 50 live interviews. Customer service calls could go either way. We'll talk E-time in a second. Customer service calls, you're just calling up somebody for a quick update. That's that everything else time. If you're calling up for your customer service calls and asking forward questions and developing a relationship or relationship calls, that is I-time. That could potentially lead to referrals because we give such fantastic service on our deals.
Okay. So I-time is anything that could lead to P-time. I-time is when you're in flow. I-time is anything you're doing to attract clients. Is going to be I-time. Would that also include, Mark, open houses?
Yes and no. Yes, it does. If you're productive with them, maybe you're going there, you're meeting people, you're taking some names and numbers so you can send them a personal note afterwards. Maybe you're walking the neighborhood to invite them down is great I-time. If you're going there and sitting there and just watching football scores and not interacting, that would be everything else time and not very productive time.
Okay, got it. So we believe, knowing that we have only ninjas listening, we believe that all of you are making great use of your open houses. You're interacting with the people that come in. You're doing a good job to invite the neighbors. You are following up. So you're making your open houses I-time.
Exactly.
Okay, E-time is what?
That's everything else time. It's sometimes the definition gets a little fuzzy when we're talking transactions. So think of anytime you get a transaction, there's mutual acceptance. And now we go and we open escrow. The deal is now in somebody else's hands. Now we got to follow through. Everything that happens after that is everything else time. Going and sitting at the inspection, showing the client's family at the house again so they can take measurements. That's all everything else time. That's just part of the job. That's what we have to do to get it done. Going and putting up a sign, getting your computer, cleaning up your emails, having a conversation, going to education classes. That's everything else time.
Got it. I think one area where there can be some confusion is that people think they hear about e-time and they think, well, there's no value in that. There's a lot of value in e-time. It's valuable to clean up your database, clean out your emails, to go put up signs. Those are things that we need to do, but it just happens to fall in that category of everything else e-time because you're not with a client and you're not doing anything directly that would lead to more clients. So it's everything else.
Exactly. And try to manage it so we can, so we can schedule iTime. And then sometimes we do e-time and then we don't schedule the i-time. And so the e-time kind of takes over. And then eventually we'll have no p-time.
Right. So they're all related. They're all connected. You're going to hear in a little bit, we'll get to the opportunities that exist within the e-time, again, which stands for everything else. So just to recap, P is productive time. That's you, a client, and some form of an agreement. I-time is indirectly productive time, anything that would lead to you having more clients to work with. E-time is everything else. Okay, Mark, within Ninja Coaching, we have a very sophisticated tracker for this. When I say sophisticated, it's not overwhelming sophisticated, but it makes this very clean and simple. It's built in Excel. It's a great tool. But even if someone doesn't have access to this, there's an easy win to start. So when we come across a lot of people that say, okay, we get the concept, I see the value, but how would I even start? I don't know if I'm ready to start putting all these kind of things in a spreadsheet. There's an easier way to start, to kind of get this off the ground, to get yourself in a habit of doing this. And Mark, can you share what that is?
Yeah. If you have a Ninja Planner, right on the bottom of the Ninja Planner, a lot of people don't see it because, we don't look at it, right? Tunnel vision, but there is Pi time down there where you can actually log in, your how many hours of P time, I time, and E time that you have, and then hopefully your total time on there. So that way you can kind of see, and you can just do that at the end of the day, like when you book in your day, as you finish out, it takes you all about 45 seconds of how many hours. And if not, maybe that's what you start in the morning, is writing that down. If you don't have a tracker, whatever system you're using your day timer for, you can use your Outlook, you can use OneNote, but just make it a daily habit of either in the morning or the day. So you can do it before or in that evening, log your time.
Exactly. We know about the belief, the philosophy to run our business like a business. If we're going to run our business like a business, we're going to know our numbers, and we're going to make this simple. We're going to be simply writing it down at the end of every day. How many hours total did I work? And if I were to break it out into P and I and E, what would that look like? So the easy win for all of you, just start writing it down. Then you can move to a spreadsheet or move to a more sophisticated way to track it. But that's the easy way to get this off the ground.
Exactly.
All right. So then once you're doing this, everyone, and I know you are going to be inspired to do this. Everyone is after this podcast. Once you're doing this, what you are going to uncover are some very interesting, let's say, measurements. All right. And you'll find a lot of these are ratios, but this is going to help you to really understand your business and make much better use of your time. Mark, one thing coming up for me right now, an important calculation when we're driving, especially if we're going to drive a long distance, is miles per gallon. Okay, so if we're going to drive a long distance, if we're going to go on a road trip, if it's several hundred miles, we probably are not going to make it there in one tank of gas. So we need to understand our miles per gallon. So that's an example of an important ratio. Okay, so we want to get great results. One way to do that is to understand some really key ratios. I'm going to share two quick ones, and then we're going to go deep on a few other ones. So the first interesting ratio for all of you to see, and the one that will come to light when you're doing this tracking, is dollars per hour, specifically dollars per P time hour. I mean, that's pretty insightful, right? To understand that time when you are with a client and you have an agreement with you. So those three pieces, you, a client, a contract, what is that worth per hour? What you're going to find is that that's going to be a high amount. All right. That will be in the 4 digits per hour. Right, Mark?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've got some people that coach between $1,200 and $1,700 per hour on their P time hour.
Right. So you're going to see that how valuable that time is. Right. And instinctively, you know that, intuitively, you know that, but to see it black and white is really powerful for you to understand just how valuable that is, that time when you are with a client and there's a potential for an agreement. The second interesting ratio is dollars per hour on iTime. So dollars per iTime hour. That's another one where you're going to see that there's a lot of value to that, right? That's going to be a high amount, maybe not 4 digits, but probably 3 digits, right, Mark?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen $400, $600, $700, $800 per hour on that iTime.
On iTime. Okay. So that would be, and you need to, obviously, you're going to get a few months of data under your belt before you start doing these calculations. But once you get yourself in the habit of tracking it, even over a few months, turns into 6 months, turns into a year, then you can have great data to work with so that you can see these ratios, understand these calculations. Okay, the next one, Mark, and we're going to spend a little more time on this one because this is where this gets really good, really interesting, is the ratio between I time and P time. So if we're in algebra class, it would be I divided by P. And simply, Mark, we're looking at how many I hours does it take to get yourself a P hour. And so can you expand on that and talk about how you use that ratio with your clients in coaching?
Yeah. One of the things I love about using the ratio in coaching is you can't really predict next week's P time, but we can dedicate time and commit time to scheduling I time. And we kind of use this as scale. I think through most of the installation, some of the coaches, it's just an average of 2 hours of I time to create 1 hour of P time. So if you just take the look at the Ninja 9 and you do the I time activities in there, your real estate reviews, your customer service calls, your personal notes, your 50 live interviews, you should be having about 10 to 12 hours of I time scheduled every week. And I think what I love about being able to look at that is, at the end of the week, you can see, are you on track or not on track? And we also know if we're not scheduling enough I time, we're not going to create the P time. And I think in the beginning, just getting an understanding of, are you scheduling enough I time every week to create the opportunity to put yourself in a position to get P time to help clients so you can get those contracts.
Got it.
I think the more you do it, the more you start seeing, are you 3 hours of I time, not all I time's created equal, right? Getting your newsletters out and postcards is activities we have to do, but it's not as valuable as sitting down for a coffee or lunch with a client or a friend or an acquaintance. It's not as valuable as doing your real estate reviews and 50 live interviews. It has to be done, but when scheduling it there.
Got it. So tell us, Mark, just a good general rule of thumb and even say a target for someone to shoot for when it comes to that ratio of how many I hours does it take to get 1 P hour. You mentioned earlier 2 to 1. Is that it, or is it like what do you see as a range, or just give us some idea?
I see 2 hours. I think 2 to 1 is a pretty good range. I had an agent a while back. She got her I hours down to 1 hour of I time to 1 hour of P time. She was really, really effective with their time. And sometimes you can take some, as we'll talk about in a little bit, about taking some of that time and shuffling it off and creating ways to move that time to somebody else or, sub that out. And I think, if you kind of look at it, I've seen ranges anywhere from 10 to 17 hours to get a P time hour.
Oh, okay. Now you're saying overall hours to get.
Yes. So if you want to get let's say, kind of jumping ahead a little bit, if you want to, get, say, 30 transactions, and if you using easy numbers, it's going to take 10 hours of P time to get you that 30 transactions this year, because hopefully everybody's doing business planning right now and getting ready for 2025, right? And so when you start looking at that, hey, my goal is to get 30 transactions. So I have to have 300 hours of P time next year, which means I need to schedule 600 hours of I time.
If their ratio was 2 to 1. So then we're going to say that's a good ratio to target. The 1-to-1 ratio is probably more the exception than not the rule. In 3, it could be 3 to 1, but let's just use 2 to 1. So someone says I want 30 transactions next year is my goal. So what that means is I'll need to have 300 hours of P time, which means you need 600 hours of I time.
Yeah, and then go deep is, okay, how many weeks do you want to work? Let's say if you want to take 48 weeks of work and take 5 weeks off, take your 600 and, divide that and your 48. Now we know how many hours of I time we need to schedule every week.
Got it.
And I think, and this is one of the things I found was so effective when I created my own problem, right? The TSW, the system works when you work the system. And all of a sudden you start going, okay, I've got a lot of transactions going. And what happens is once we start doing transactions, the P time turns to E time, and then the I time stops because we have to manage the deal and we stop doing I time. And that's when that roller coaster comes in.
Right.
And I know that was a huge key of my coach pointing out to me, and as a coach trying to help people not fall into those roller coaster traps. When you start seeing I time drop down, you can tell I time drops down, P time drops down. And then, of course, that means paycheck drops down. And if you could start monitoring that and say, oh, I got to somehow get those I time hours scheduled in there, because if you start getting too many gaps in the weeks of I time, you will have gaps in the week of P time, and then you'll have paycheck gaps.
Right. Paycheck gaps. So no one wants that. We work in coaching to level out people's income, make people's income more predictable. And we use this tool to do that, to help people. And so maybe another way to say this, Mark, is that the number of hours that you're spending on I time, that's a leading indicator. Because I time leads to P time leads to paycheck. So you can trace it backwards. If someone is having terrific results when it comes to number of closings, it's very likely, no surprise, they were having a lot of P time, which means that they were having a lot of I time. And we can say the opposite. If someone is not getting the results they want, we can easily look at, well, how much P time has been spent? Probably not enough. And then which means not enough I time has been spent. By the way, Mark, I did the math really quick on that example, because I'm guessing people were wondering as we were playing out that example. And let's use this example for this topic that we're talking about right now. There we are. We have a ninja, let's say a coaching client. They want to have 30 transactions in 2025. And it's realistic to find that means that they would need to have 300 total hours in the year of P time. And if they had a 2-to-1 ratio, that means they would have 600 hours of I time, which on the surface may sound like a lot. Someone might be saying, oh my gosh, how could I ever do my I time, which is, again, it's mostly think of it as prospecting time for 600 hours, because that's 12 and a half hours a week if you were working 48 hours. And that what's so interesting about that, Mark, is that the I time activities and the Ninja 9 success habits total up to about how many hours a week?
10 to 12 hours, right?
12 hours.
Funny how that works, right?
They are. So if you can just do the Ninja 9 success habits, embedded in there is plenty of I time. It's going to total up to about 12 hours a week. Next thing you know, if you did that over the course of 48 weeks, next thing you know, you've now had 600 hours of I time. And if you're someone who is at that 2-to-1 ratio, there you are, 300 hours of P time, and you're having 30 transactions.
It's funny how the system works, right? When you kind of look at it, these processes. And I think it's such a simple thing to track to help us keep on our systems. And, I think one of the things is it's when you're looking at I time, you can actually build a business plan around your I time activities. If you want to do client appreciation events, it's an I time activity. I mean, who doesn't like pie time we just talked about, right? If you want to go out and give away pies around the holidays, that is an I time activity. And some people will send other people out to deliver their pies for them, but we're losing the opportunity for relationships. If you go out and do the pie times, how much are you learning about people? I just had somebody recently do that, and they came back with people on their warm list from the conversations, which is, now we're turning I time into what's the next step to help them, which will end up leading to P time.
Right. Got it.
It's not magic. It just works.
Okay. I'm just going to pause here and do a check-in with everyone, because I know we've been using the word, P and I, the letters P and I and E a lot. We've been saying P time, I time. Again, this is so simple. I talked about algebra before. This is not algebra. Even if you're someone who wasn't great in math in school, that's not a problem. Okay, you can do this. And again, this can be a place where people make this more complicated than it really is. And all this is, Mark, you're just keeping track of your time, and you're putting it into one of three categories. Either it's productive, it's indirectly productive, or it's something else.
Yeah. And I think some people, and I've been coaching people, they try to overthink what is I time and what isn't. And I just think be consistent with it. I mean, if like one of the things we used to do season football tickets. We're at a small rural community, and I would always count about an hour of that of I time, because we'd go ahead of time and we'd talk to people. We were right in the front row. People had to walk by us, and I'd come away with 15 to 18 conversations. I would count an hour of I time, but I can only count the hour of I time if I wrote down the names and people I talked to and what I learned about them. And I think when you start looking at opportunities where you can create the I time, you can schedule a business plan around it. If you don't want to count that, then be consistent. Just be really consistent with it. Don't overthink it.
Don't overthink.
Just start doing it to begin with.
Yeah, just do it. Don't overthink it. It counts when you are having forward conversations and you're going deeper. It's not just the fluff kind of conversation. You're going deeper, and there's something that you would say that you learned in the conversation. Then it counts.
Yeah, don't get too much. Oh, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I got 5 names. I'm counting an hour at the grocery store. You're going to go to the grocery store anyways. The ninja thing to do is to talk to people.
Right. Ask forward questions and find out what you can learn. Okay, so now let's talk about the opportunity that exists within e-time, because sometimes what you find, Mark, with coaching clients when they're doing these calculations, and when they see the potential, when they see the dollar per hour that exists on the dollar per P hour and dollar per I hour, they want to get many more P and I hours, and they might say, "Well, oh my gosh, where will I get those hours?" And the place to get them is which category?
The E time we can push out so we can get P time, right?
Yeah.
And so in that E time, when you start looking at what can you sub out, that's start looking at an assistant to take some of that off that plate, right? A lot of time the E time stuff, a lot of, like you were saying, Eric, you have to do the transaction management. That's stuff you have to do. You got to go to the inspection. You got to let the inspector in. Don't just sit in the car and listen to the radio. If you're waiting for them to go through, maybe write a couple notes. Maybe turn a little bit of I time there, but maybe you can get an assistant to do that so you can go to coffee or lunch with somebody because it's a higher value hour activity. So some of that E time stuff. I did have somebody, it was kind of funny, a long time ago where I said, go have somebody put the signs up. That's E time. She goes, oh, not mine. I would tell you a little bit more about that. And she says, well, every time I put a sign up, I'm in a rural community. I'm trying to build my database up. I go and knock on all the door of the neighbors and give them a flyer about the new listing coming up. She goes, I always end up coming back for a real estate review or a CMA to somebody in the neighborhood. She was turning that E time into I time. So kind of when people are thinking of that is, and like you said, Eric, I mean, when you got $1,000 an hour in P time and $400 an hour in I time, and even if your E time is $50 an hour, isn't it worth to pay somebody $30 an hour to go spend more time in I time so you can create more P time?
When you're worth $400 an hour. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's all relative, right?
Yeah. So you have some choices if you really want to ramp things up. If you want to get even better results, you have some choices with your E time. You can delegate those things. You could hire an assistant, by the way, or you could get people on a per transaction basis. Could you get the help of a transaction coordinator that you're not necessarily hiring, but you're paying them per transaction? So delegation is a choice. Automation is a choice. There might be some ways to automate, get technology to help you with some of these things. The other opportunity is to rethink it, turn E time into I time, like the example that you shared. I'm going to go put up a sign. Well, while I do that, I'm going to go meet people that will be curious about this sign and the name on this sign. So be a ninja and turn it into I time.
Yeah, I got an agent. She turns a lot of E time driving into I time. She calls it windshield time. That's when she starts making her relationship calls. Your power hour. If you got to be in the car for a while, start right now. Right, call everybody in your database and wish them well, and take opportunity in the car to make your phone calls and not just listen to the radio, be I time productive.
Yes. Yes. Mark, earlier I mentioned the sophisticated tool that we have within coaching that tracks this. I mentioned this thought that I time is a leading indicator. And I'm just thinking, Mark, about an example that you shared with me the other day of a real life coaching client. And you showed on the screen the graph that we use to track this time within this tracker, and that you showed me someone who's having terrific results right now. And then you could show me, I think 30 to 45 days before the closings and the transactions was a whole lot of P time. And then we could look 30 to 45 days before that, what was a whole lot of I time. And can you just kind of explain, visually and what you tend to see, in those trends, the numbers don't lie, right?
Yeah, and it's funny is every time you think, you look and then you see the graph and you're like, oh, that's it, right? You can see, okay, if you go and let's consistently 45 days, you stick with your Ninja 9 and you rock it for the next 45 days, you will create P time out of that because all the E time that you did. And then that P time turns into contracts. And those contracts, that activity now is E time. And when you get a lot of I time, it creates P time. And then the P time will create E time. And if we mismanage our I time and we overdo our E time, we have a drop in I time, which means 40 to 60 days, 45 to 60 days from now, we're going to see the P time drop down. Yeah. Which means now we have a lot more time to spend on I time to get that back up, right? And so it's a kind of you're creating your own storm.
Right, exactly. And again, everyone, just keep this simple. So if you're thinking, okay, gosh, in the future, 60 to 75 days from now, I would sure like to have a closing, several closings. Well, to make that happen, you need to be having some time with clients and you, a client in a contract, about 45 days from now. And so to make that happen, you just need to be in flow with a whole lot of people right now. And that's the very, very simple way to think about this. Mark, anything you want to leave us with as it comes to Pi time, especially related to the fact that we're here in business planning? Anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
Kind of sometimes moving into simple terms. Number one thing is I always try to get clear is most everybody's running a multi-million-dollar business, right? And businesses start planning and tracking things to see what works and doesn't work. And this is a great tool to help you find out what's working and not working in the activities. And so really run your multi-million-dollar business the way a business should be run. And then it also makes you a lot more effective with your time. So you have more freedom to go do the fun things. You can create that freedom to do it. And sometimes we kind of overthink it. If you think about a marathon, a lot of people are getting ready for New Year's resolutions and they're going to do their 5K and let's say June, right? Well, in order to do the 5K in June, if you haven't been doing any exercise, you have to start planning. You got to start exercising. You got to start dieting and eating, which would be the I time, right? You have to start planning those activities so you can get ready for that, that the marathon's the P time, right? And so I think just to kind of wrap my thoughts of it up is, we can create our I time, we can do the ninja activities so we can create it, so we can get that P time, so we can help our clients and put them in a position to help them close the transaction and get their dreams.
Yeah, perfect. Really good. You know what? Everyone wants predictable income. And that can be a frustration for some in this business where it can feel like a roller coaster. But you know what? When you put the numbers to it, when you just put the science behind it, when you do the math, the very simple math, that's how you make this more predictable. Also coming up for me, Mark, it seems like it would make sense, even if if they don't know their exact numbers yet, if they don't know their exact ratios yet, maybe they're saying, gosh, I need a year's worth of data before I even know all this stuff. Just go ahead and make some assumptions. And then you can see if those assumptions are true as the year goes on. And maybe, Mark, they can assume that they do have a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 hours of I time leads to 1 hour P time. And maybe, help me out, maybe their dollar per hour for I time is somewhere between $500 and $750, and maybe their P time is somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500. Or those would be safe.
Yeah.
Make it depend for sure on how productive you are and the average price point in your market. But what if you started everyone kind of with those assumptions and then put it to the test?
Yeah, with the kits, right? Keep it simple. Just start tracking it to see, what your ratios are. Like you said, is okay, what if you did 30 days to kind of say, okay, what does 30 days look like? How many hours did I work and how many hours of that was P time and I time and that everything else time? And, can you do better next month, right? If we could just do one step better every month, and then at the end of the year, you'll have some numbers. We have those measures to kind of look at to say, okay, next year, if I want to get better or stay the same, what can I do to create that better? It starts this week, right? Just start measuring it this week. And it's really not that hard. It's to take 45 seconds at the end of the day to log it down. And then, if you have like the tracker that we have, or if you create another one, once a week, put all those numbers into that tracker at that time. And so that way you have a system, hopefully everybody's doing a weekly meeting with theirself to plan their week and review last week. That is when I used to take my daily activities and just put it into the trackers. So that way it's quick and simple.
Yes. Perfect. Okay. We're going to finish with keep it simple. That's a great way to finish, Mark. Just get better every month, right? Start this and just get a little bit better every month. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Great time for Pi time.
That's right. We're going to make this light and fun. It's Pi time. We wish everyone the happiest of Thanksgivings. We are so grateful for all of you in the Ninja Nation and all that you do for us, the energy that you bring, the ideas, the collaboration. You make us all better. And if you're curious about Ninja coaching, go to our website, ninjaselling.com, find the coaching button right at the top. We're happy to schedule a complimentary consultation with you. And again, we wish everyone a very, very happy Thanksgiving. We are grateful for all of you. We're super grateful that you listened to this episode. We look forward to connecting with you in the next one. Take care.